Hi, my name is Amy McDade, and I'll be interviewing Marg and Glenn.
Hi, Amy.
Hi.
Glad to meet you.
You too. So, the first question I have is, who was your biggest influence when you were growing up?
Well, I expect I would say my parents and my teachers, actually. Yeah.
That's good. Where did you grow up, and when did you move there?
Well, I grew up in the Duval district. I was born in Duval, and we lived there. My parents had just come back from Vancouver. My dad was a real estate agent there, and he had to come back to Saskatchewan for health reasons. He had a farm, the farm I'm living on right now, and he, because of the health reasons, I said he had to come back to Saskatchewan, but he had rented the farm, so as a result we had to live in town, and that's where I was born, in Duval. And then when I was about 3-4 years old, we moved back to the farm and grew up on the farm, and which was, I always enjoyed being on the farm. Yes.
What did a typical day growing up look like for you?
Well, because I was the youngest of the family, my sister, I had 2 brothers and a sister, and my sister was 9 years older than the brothers were older, so I was more or less on my own. And especially when you're on the farm in those days, we didn't have close neighbors, so I had to really make my own amusement. So that's why I can live by myself, and I'm quite able to entertain myself and, be independent. So, yeah.
Did your parents struggle to make ends meet, or was it pretty easy?
No, I don't think we struggled really. We lived on the farm, and Dad had a business in town. He was an implement agent and the Imperial Oil agent, and so we had the farm, and we had our own produce like milk. We had cows and chickens, and so I don't think we ever really struggled that much as some people did.
How did you get to school, and how far in school did you get?
Well, I went to school we were on the farm when I started school, and I went in a van, which is, you call them buses now, but in those days the school van in the summer was a car, and in the winter it was a sleigh, a covered sleigh, and for heat we didn't have any heat in the sleigh. We had blankets, and we had a foot warmer for our feet, and a foot warmer was an oblong kind of a metal box, and they would put hot coals in it so that your feet kept warm in the winter, and then in the summer we had cars, and it was because it was a consolidated school. Duval was. They had these vans or cars in the summer and the horses in the winter. They went out and picked up the kids from all around. I think there was about 3 areas: north of town, west of town, and south of town. And they didn't, well, if you lived a half a mile from town, then you had to walk. They didn't pick you up then, but that's how we got to school.
What were your
what schooling did you take?
How far? I went to grade 11 in Duval. At that time we had, at the beginning we had three classrooms, and you'd have, say, 1 to 4 in one room, and 5 to 8 in another room, and 9 to 11. They never taught grade 12. And so I had to take my grade 12 in Govan. And in those days, you had to pay tuition. If you didn't live in the town, you had to pay for your own grade 12, no matter where you went. And so you paid your own tuition, you paid your own room and board, and you had to buy all your books. and arrange for your own transportation. So it was quite different in those days for grade 12 if you didn't have it in where you lived.
Yeah.
And it's because Duval was a smaller place, then they didn't have grade 12 there. So it was quite different. I went, yes,
sorry.
and then after that, I went to normal school in Saskatoon to take, that was just at the beginning of the war, and they were, or at the end of the war, I should say, and they were very short of teachers. So you could go for 6 weeks to normal school and go out and teach. Anyway, I opted to take the whole year at normal school to get a teaching certificate, and then to get the rest of my education and teaching, I went to summer school, which was when you were finished teaching for the year, you would go to summer school, 1st of July, for 6 weeks, and then you'd have 2 weeks holiday, and you'd go back to school, to teaching school. So I went in the University of Saskatchewan. I took courses there in summer school, and also in BC and UBC. And the first school I went to when I first started teaching it would be interesting to you, because it was a new two-room school up north in Saskatchewan. It was near Porcupine Plain, and I think I had grades 1 to 6
Wow.
in my room, and they took 7 to 12, I think, 11 or 12 in the other room. Yeah, so it was quite different, because at least in Duval we had only 3-4 grades at the most in the room. But then being faced out of normal school first year with 6 grades, I mean, it was, you know,
It's a lot.
But I must say, when the children started school in grade 1, they had never had kindergarten in those days either. So, you know, some of them could, well, some, as they do now, they could read and write when they started, but some had no idea. They could barely speak English, some of them. And it was amazing to me. Grade 1 was the most, gave you the most good feeling, because they would be so, and by the end of the year you could see so much progress between grade 1 and when they finished. And then when they were in the school with all these grades, you know, if you'd gone through 1 to 9 in a rural school and been in it all those years, then you would pick up so much information. By the time you were in grade 4 and 5, you heard all this from then for how many years. So, you know, it was really amazing. I know grade 1 was always amazing to me, because when they came in, some of them, you know, they couldn't read or write, and when they left, it was just, you could see so much progress. Yes, it was really something that I really liked.
That's
I liked
good.
the primary. I ended up teaching primary mostly,
Wow.
grades 1 and 2. I taught for about 37 years. So
Wow.
with a few years in between for traveling and
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah.
And so, what were your hopes and dreams growing up?
Well, in those days, like, you know, there wasn't much. It wasn't like today. There weren't the opportunities like that they have today. So teaching and nursing kind of appealed to me. So I thought, what will I do? And so then I decided, when they came out with these short courses for teaching, I thought, well, I could do that. Go to normal for a year and then take my rest of my university in summer school, which I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you regret anything you did or didn't do in your life?
I think probably regret not doing more traveling.
Yeah.
I did quite a bit of traveling, but I would like to have done more, and I would like to have been in a place where I could have taken music. I had taken music lessons for a few years. We had our teachers come from Strasbourg to Duval. They would come and they'd teach. They'd stay overnight in somebody's house, and you'd go to their house and have a half-hour lesson. That's how we got our musical instruction. And when you live in a small town, of course, you don't have the advantage of going ahead and taking, in those days, taking exams in music and that. And I would like to have, I think I regret not having been able to, continue on with my music and playing an instrument. I would like to have learn to play the violin.
Yeah,
Music has
that's
been
really cool.
something that's very, I've always had access to music, and my family were all musical, so it was a very important part in our life.
Wow. What is your best memory of your entire life that you remember vividly?
Well, I guess traveling mostly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and teaching. Teaching too was, one of the things in teaching that I liked the best was Christmas concerts that we used to have, and they're not the same now.
No.
No, and some schools, of course, they don't have them at all, but that was one of the highlights of my year, and I enjoyed traveling. We went to, different places we went. We traveled quite a bit in Canada, Eastern Canada, Maritimes, Ontario, Quebec, and up in the northern BC. Went to the UK. I went to the UK many times because I have relatives there. Of course, that's where my family came from. New Zealand and Australia, we were there three winters. And then we went to Malaysia and Singapore.
Wow.
And southern states, Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas. And one of the things that we wanted to go back and do some more of was traveling in northern New Mexico, where the Anasazi Indians lived. You would, in those, I can't remember just what year it was, but it was quite a few years ago. And at that time, you could climb ladders up. It was in northern New Mexico, so it was quite high. The elevation's quite high. And you could crawl up ladders and look down into the caves where they lived. And in this one cave, there were corn cobs left from from when they lived there, and they would have been there a couple of 100 years or more probably. And it was really interesting, and I thought, gee, I'd like to go back and do some more exploring around those places there. Then we went to Mexico too, because we went to Texas, South Texas in the winter. Then you could go into Mexico on tours. And something that was very interesting there was down in southern Mexico, where they had the Mayan ruins and those pyramids, and it was so interesting there. And we went, we were young enough, you could climb up these pyramids. It was very interesting.
That'd be amazing.
Yes, it was amazing.
My last question for you is, if you could have done anything that you didn't do in your life, what would it be?
Well, I guess more travel,
Yeah.
I guess. I didn't go to Europe. When we were in Britain, I was in Britain many times, and we could have easily gone over to Europe, but we always had quite a few. I went with a cousin from Toronto, and because he'd been born over there, and we would travel around there quite a bit, and as well as visiting relatives and staying with relatives. Then we would go. We went to a lot of cathedrals and cities in Britain, and it was very interesting. And I think I would like to have gone over to the continent, and Spain and Greece and southern France were always something that I thought, gee, I wished I'd gone there.
Well, thank you very much for letting me interview you.
You're very welcome.
Nice
Thank
to
you.
meet you. Thank you very much.
Thanks.